you want to study from a rural perspective, studies has been conducted from rural perspective. So how the I mean the students who live in town, big city, engage or involved in discipline problems at school, as compared to urban area, yeah, urban area. So how you can understand that by looking at different perspective, urban, rural. Does that any different? Does show any difference between these contexts? Urban, rural, we do not know from our perspective. Maybe we can assume, we can assume that urban area are more aggressive as compared to rural area, right? By our assumption, maybe we can set the assumption aside first, and then we look for evidences, right? Look for evidences, and then if we want to know also from the bigger perspective, like for example, state to states, yeah, states to states, like for example, Johor to KL, KL to Selangor, Selangor to Kedah, Kedah to Kelantan, Kelantan to Sabah, based on the state's studies. So maybe we can see the pattern, how the patterns develop. And then we want to see from the Indonesia, Malaysia as compared to Singapore, Malaysia as compared to Thailand, Malaysia as compared to UK, Malaysia as compared to China, Malaysia as compared to Arabic countries, Malaysia as compared to African countries. So this kind of thing, when we look through comprehensively, then we can slowly understand, hey, this is the situation now. Just about discipline problem among students. Those are the things that we need to engage at the very beginning of the literature survey. Okay, the beginning of literature survey. So playing around with that. Don't worry about the title, but you know what you want to do. The title will comes by itself later, right? After you considering so many perspective, then you can see, oh, now I can see, oh, right, from my field of study, this is what I want to do. Then you can slowly you know, formulate the problems into more specific, more specific, all right? Not to say you just want to ignore these, and that, but because the time limitation that you have, the energy that you have, this is the perspective that I think still interesting, need to be done in my field of study. So that is how it works from one steps to another. So I think, I mean, what I can say is patience. The more you read, that's why some people say the more you read, the more you don't know. Why? Because when you read, oh, now you realize there are so many things out there. So that's why you feel that the more you read, the more you don't know, because you now start realizing there are so many things, there are so many issues out there. But if you don't read, you don't feel that, because you don't know there are so many things out there. So that's why people like to say, the more you read, the more you don't know. So this is what I mean by looking for evidences. Yeah, looking for evidences. And then like this one, why the research problem is important, right? Why the research important is important. No, in order to justify that the problem is important, is by establishing, right? By establishing that, by providing related references, yeah, related references. See, this is what we mean, exploration of the literature, yeah, literature survey and literature review, in order to justify why the problem is interesting to be studied. Okay, otherwise, people might say, "Hey, have you read this one? No. Have you read this one? No. Have you checked this one? No." Then, what make you think that your study is interesting and important to be studied, to be conducted? How do you want to address the question? How do you want to respond to the question? You can't, because you are not doing the reading. You are not doing the exploration. So that's why in order to justify the research problem is to do reading. Okay, go out and search for the related references, right? So I think what I can say is patience. Yeah? If we don't have patience, I think we tend to come to a conclusion, jump to a conclusion. That's why normally people, many of my students, when they start working, they like to start out with the title. This is hard, work out with the title. Okay. Now, like I said, the justification based on what other researchers have found in past studies, right? Past studies from different perspectives. Just name it. I can share with you, my friend, one of them. They came to me and asked me about his idea, verbally. He just say like this, like that, like this, like that, and then well, okay, then I just clarify with him, and then I argue with him, this and that. Oh, okay. All right. I think, and then at the end of the discussion, I just suggested him, okay, you should come out with some sort of diagram, or some sort of sketch to show the direction, the activities, everything related to your activities, and then you can see. Otherwise, like something like you visualize, right? Visualize things in front of you, and then you know where to go. And then the other one came to me with a big paper with the mind mapping of the idea. Yeah. And then he put down on the floor in my room, in my very room. So he put down on the room in on the floor, because the paper is so big, and then we don't have space. So I just asked him, oh, it's okay. Can I just put down on the floor? Yes, please. And then he start explaining this, and that, this, according to the mind map that he has produced. Okay. The first response was like I said, okay, you already one left, one leg already passed over the line. So I think you already halfway through. Hey, what do you mean? Because you already know what you do. You know what you do, and then why you do this, and then where to go, everything, meaning how you already halfway through. So this is what I mean. And then he showed me the articles, journals, theses, past studies related to every single aspects that he managed to identify. And then finally, I said, okay, you go ahead with this. I think you spend another month to work on what you have planned, and then slowly after that, you stop, and then you start formulating your research focus. I think that should be a fine. It should be fine. And then eventually, the first friend, the first friend managed to finish the study within 5 years' time. And then the first friend, 3.5, right? 3.5, right? Not really 3.5, but I mean, I can say 3.5. See, imagine. So you need to find ways to find the related references, and so that in order to understand, yeah, in order to understand the problem, what is really happening, what we mean by what is really happening. Yeah, like I said, researchers, what other researchers have found related to that problem. So in order to understand the problem is that learning from other perspective. And then justification based on the personal or workplace experiences. So this is really, really helpful, right? At least you can have something to start off. And then also don't forget, maybe it could be related from other people experiences. Yeah, other people experiences. Maybe the common pattern. And then after that, you can start arguing about determining whether the problem should be researched. Number one, can you study the problem? Right? So that is talking about the practicality or the feasibility of the study. Can you study the problem? Do you have access to the research site? If you're studying something like, very restricted, you have to access this, it's hard. It's hard. So accessibility will tells you whether this is feasible or not to be conducted. And do you have time, resources, skills to carry out the research? When we say research skills, this is what we were trying to do now. Okay, try to develop the research skills. Yeah, We think that we know everything, but in fact, when we come to the real situation, conducting the studies, there's so much to learn. Yeah. And then the second question, the first one about the feasibility and the possibility of the study to be conducted, okay? Whether the problem can be explored, can be studied or not. And then follow to that question is whether should you study the problem, right? This is this question can only be answered by looking at the one that I mentioned just now, from different perspective, from this, from that, from this. Then you can justify whether your study is really something that advancing the knowledge or contributing to the practices, right? This is what I mean. I mean something like when we, you can ask yourself whether this is a very satisfaction for you, to you as a researcher in providing, contributing to the advancement of the knowledge. These are a list of questions that we need to ask ourselves. Will your study fill a gap, right? Will your study replicate past studies, but examine different participants in different research sites? Number five, will your study extend past research or examine the topic more thoroughly? Or number six, will your study give voice to people not heard, silenced, or rejected in society? Well, that's another consideration. Sometimes, when you say about teaching language, maths, everything, talking about the teachers have found this, okay? In practice, they said that we have to have this, but the government does not really hear the sound or the voice from the teacher. So how you go about, right? How you go about. So this is the one that you think you have to consider. Will your study inform practice, right? Go back to the first question. Yeah? Inform practice. Right. Now look at this one. The examples of the flow of ideas. I would say, like, in a simple manner, yeah, in a simple manner. So you start off with the topic, you try to find the research problem, right, and justification for research problem, and then deficiencies in the evidence, and relating to the discussion to the audiences. Audiences meaning every reader, yeah, including your supervisor, policymakers, as well as the examiner. So how you work on this one? Yeah, like topic, you work with the topic, try to find the problem, yeah, research problem, and then to justify why the problem need to be conducted, yeah, need to be studied, and then deficiencies in the evidence. So this will tells you how far, right, how far the references have studied the problems. Okay, so that is what you need to consider. Now, look at this one. I just give you some example to get some ideas. Yeah? Discipline problem among students. So within the discipline problem, then you have identified, after you have gone through the reading, you have identified, you want to concentrate on the aggressive behavior, right? Aggressive behavior. Just an example. Yeah, this one is just an example in smaller scales, aggressive behavior. And then when you start identifying the aggressive behavior, sometimes they like a reverse engineering. You go back again, you go for literatures, and then start to formulate the problems, and then go back to the literatures again. Because the moment you're concentrating on the discipline problem, so you will go in a general manner. But when you can start to concentrating on the aggressive behavior, you go back down to the studies that conducted on the perspective of aggressive behavior. So like come and forth, and something like back and forth, working with the literature, yeah, literatures. And then by doing that, at least you can identify gap in the literature, and then description, identifying, characterizing the aggressive behavior, and then finally, how this finding you expect that to inform practices, yeah, inform practices, so that not to say you can solve the problem, solve the problem, because solving the problems, sometimes the students so ambitious, they just use a small scale of study, yeah? Studying from like what, 4 or 5 schools, right? 4 or 5 schools in their area, like 4 or 5 schools, and then they start to recommend to the whole country, which is it's not really happened. It does not happen like that. You're just concentrating, studying only 3 or 4 schools, and then you so ambitiously to recommend your findings to the whole country. So this is not happened that way. So that's why sometimes the students so ambitious. If we study conducting a small scale studies like PhD, master, so maybe sometimes you can consider about informing the practices in the a broader perspective, like in the country, provided we have to follow the research design accordingly, that allow us to make something like inference to a bigger perspective. So this will be explored when you studying when you start discussing about research design, quantitative studies, qualitative studies, and mixed method studies. So you will come back to this one when you
Doctor, excuse me.
yes, yes.
Can you please explain the deficiencies in the evidence? This evidence is what that we collected for our study, or is it that we looked into published works and all that?
That's right. That's right. That's why I said, if we go through the evidences, okay, including research, past studies, theses, articles, seminars, conferences, anything, right, related to the topics or the issues, okay, and then we make some sort of analysis, right? That's why we have uh, a systematic review and meta-analysis, right? I'll show you afterwards, so how to do that in a simple way, and so that we want to understand the problem. That is the first thing. How we define understanding the problem, because we know that, oh, in this context, oh, there's something missing, and then when you analyze from this perspective, also missing. This is what we mean, the deficiencies. Okay, the deficiencies within the references. And you can see, oh, my, I think, okay, then you can start deciding what types or what kind of problems that you want to focus. So that's what we mean, the gap, and then slowly you can see, okay, this is slack, this is slack, this is slack, this is slack. We can only say that after we consider the whole perspective of the references or the evidences. Okay,
Okay, thank you, doctor.
that's what you need to do. You can imagine that, how much energy that you have to spend to come I mean, to reach to that level. All right, so everything's in front of you, and then you can see the pattern. Then you can start understanding, right, the problems clearly. Otherwise, people keep on asking, why do you want to study this? How do you want to address? How do you want to answer that? How do you want to respond that? I think in research we cannot say I think, because we have to provide with evidences. This is the way. Not to say, I mean, be careful when you presenting your ideas in front of your supervisor and your examiners. Yeah, you have to respect them. I mean, in the simpler words, I would say like this. Okay, this is the situation. Then we can explain. Pop, 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 pop. This. Oh, that's very interesting. They're very comprehensive ideas. Okay, this is how they respond. But if they ask you, why do you want to study this? I think when you start you saying I think, then the question will come. Yeah, they will keep on asking you more questions. Yeah, more tougher question. So that's why I just gave you 2 examples. Yeah. One is my friend that came to me without any idea about, without any mind map. And the other one is with mind map. They know everything, covering the whole aspect, the whole perspective of the issues, of the problems. Then when people ask this, he can explain. People ask this angle, he can explain. People ask from this angle, he can explain by providing the references. That's what we mean. And then slowly, and then because we want to become like somebody that can be referred to. You are a PhD holder in what? TESOL. Okay, we should have some kind of thinking and to become like somebody different. Okay, I can be somebody like, people can come to me and ask, and then clarify things because I'm the PhD holder of TESOL. Maybe you can set yourself as a challenge, as a challenge. Otherwise, people, wow, you PhD, but I don't see any different before and after. All right. Now defining. See, this is the process. How we can define the process and problems is start identifying and then start going for problem formulation. And then the moment we reach problem formulation, problem formulation, we manage to formulate the problems, the focus of the studies, and then um, uh, the direction of the study, and then we start to conduct the study. So before we reach to the study, the actual study, so we have to go through these three stages, the problems, and then go for literature review, a literature survey, and literature review, and then finally, after those tedious activities, and finally we can start to formulate our research problems. Okay, before we can, start to consider, okay, what kind of research design, what kind of research process, research activities that we need to go throughout until the end. So those are the things. Before we can decide to that, maybe we need to go literature survey. You know what? Before During the literature survey and literature review activities, actually, we going through hundreds of references, hundreds of references, maybe thousands of references. Some of the references is, no, this is not related, this is not related, this is not related, or this is related, this is not related, and scrutinize every single references. Okay, throughout the process, when we scrutinize every single references, sometimes, not to say sometimes, many times we will come across like the research design being used, all right? The population sampling, how they do the population and sampling. We also learn about the instrumentation, how they develop the instrument, right? How they validate the instrument, and also how they do the data analysis. So those are the elements that we will come across throughout the process of literature survey and literature review. So those are the information that need to be listed and then need to be kept safely in our records. Yeah, our records. Although you find that these articles, these findings, or these thesis is not related, you don't throw that away simply like that. So you just put one side, one folder, so that maybe, who knows, in future you might need that. To use that reference. Yeah? We do not know, because once we have found something, put one side, put one side. This is will be scrutinized further. This one, maybe I keep that for a while, and then later maybe I can come back to this one. So that is how we need to do. Okay, after this, after we manage to understand the problems and then try to formulate the problem into a smaller, more focused, because like I said, we only have a very limited time, so we need to be more focused, what to be studied, what to be conducted, what focus to be given. And then we can start considering about the methods or the research methods, research method, how we want to conduct the study, whether we want to conduct in quantitative way or qualitative way. That's one question. Second question, whether this problems, is more appropriate to use quantitative or to use qualitative? That's a second question. And then the third question, why quantitative is more appropriate than qualitative, or the other way around, right? Vice versa. Why qualitative study is more appropriate than quantitative, right? And then now we start talking about mixed method design. Why do we need to mix the design, right? Quantitative and qualitative. Why do we need to mix them together? So there must be a reasons why. Always the reasons why. Like just now, the first one. Okay, the design. Why quantitative? Why qualitative? All right, and then the most appropriate one. Why whether quantitative or qualitative? Not just that, but we need to justify why quantitative or why qualitative. Here, I just list down several things related to the quantitative and qualitative. You see that quantitative probable costs or effect. Why did it happen? Use of theories. Why did it happen in view of an explanation of theory or theory? Assess differences and magnitude. How strong, right? How strong? Like for example, the differences. We're talking about the differences between A and B. The differences. How strong the differences? How big? Right? That's why they call it the magnitude or the correlation. How strong the correlation? Is it close? Is it far? Is it moderate? So those are the perspective in the quantitative study, whereas in the qualitative study, it's more to descriptive, what is really happening, and then interpretive. Why we say interpretive? Because the way people construct understanding, the way people understand certain situation is different from one person to another. Like for example, when we say the problems of discipline problem behavior at schools, yeah, maybe from the teacher's perspective is this way, and then from the parent's perspective is this way, and then from the school's perspective is this way, and then from the counselor perspective is this way, and then from the policy makers is this way. So the way people interpret is based on their personal attributes. So that's why in regards to qualitative study, they don't look for consensus, right? They don't look for consensus because they consider that everyone is different from one to another. So why do we need to group them into a similar understanding? We don't need consensus because everyone have a different view, different understanding, and different feeling, and even different experiences. So we don't need to consensus. We get the consensus between them. But in quantitative, consensus is the most critical part, right? That's why when you say magnitude, it's a consensus. Like say from 100%, right? How do you know the magnitude is so strong, so high? How many percent from 100%, right? Like for example, 80%. Wow, this is strong. This is very strong. 80% of the people agree, say, for example, they agree. So meaning 80%, 8 over 10, 8 over 10 is agree, meaning strong. If only 1 over 10, meaning 10% out of 100%, agree with the situation, so meaning it's not really strong, only one person. But to qualitative, they don't go for consensus. They prefer more to understand people according to their understanding. So that's why they don't go for consensus. Process oriented, what happened over time. So see the perspective. They like to see consensus, right? The five like 5 fingers out of 5 fingers, how many is supported, right? For qualitative, they don't say how many from these 5 fingers, right? They just want to know this accordingly. So they have maybe they have different experiences, this, and that. At the end of the day, when they analyze, of course, they will come back to the not to say consensus, but the common pattern, right? The common pattern. So I mean, something like very critical to be considered. If you think that you want to understand the problem in this way, maybe you should go to the qualitative types of study. But if you just want to know about the probability, the magnitude, everything, try to see consensus, then consider that quantitative as the more appropriate research design for your study. Okay, so this will be explored further when you go for the what was that the module 2, where you will be discussing with the teachers about where the use. You can read yourself this. Then qualitative study problem statement. See, to understand the central phenomenon, right? And this one to identify variables, their relationships, participants, site for research. See, if you want to see relationships, the word relationships is talking about magnitude, how strong the relationships, okay? Or maybe you want to explore about differences, how much difference from one A to B. And then the effect, if you want to see the effect, it's also about relationship, but now you want to see the effect. Okay, how strong this effect this. So that is more to quantitative study. So I think it's not that difficult to understand. The moment we think that we want to see the consensus, and in order to see the relationships or the effects, right, or the differences, then we know that this is more to quantitative study. Yeah? But if you think that we just want to understand the central phenomenon, meaning how people experiencing the situation, like for example the discipline problem. Yeah, the discipline problem. We want to learn from the perspective of students. We do not know what is really happening because, like, if we want to concentrate on the aggressive behavior, okay, say for example, 5 students, okay, 5 students that convicted have been recorded to be aggressive uh, at school with the teachers. If we explore them one by one, okay, the way they're aggressive, the reasons, right, and then the justification, anything related why they so aggressive to the teachers, might be you may come out with a different understanding. This student might be because of this, the pressure that they have received at home, okay, at home. These students may have been having problem with the peers. This. So from that understanding, from that exploration, at least we now slowly to understand the central phenomenon about the discipline problem among students at school, at that particular schools. Then you can slowly understand. Oh, is because of the parents, how the parents really affect to their behavior. So we can explore them further. So that's why they call it in-depth exploration. Yeah, in-depth exploration. So we explore, try to understand, or try to discover. That is the words, yeah, the qualitative words. Normally, in the way we write the research objective, the research statement, the problem statements, we tend to use these qualitative words, yeah, to explore, to understand, to discover. Whereas in the quantitative study, normally we use this kind of words, in describing the research statement, yeah, the research statement. Now look at this one. Yeah? This is the same way like this, but just in the diagram manner. So you can see there the quantitative is more to not to say just a linear relationships from x to y, like you want to see the how the independent variable influences the dependent variables. So those are the quantitative. So that's why they focus more on explaining and predicting. Whereas in the qualitative study, we try to explore and try to understand, see how the in-depth understanding of why external forces X shape and are shaped by Y, meaning the connection between the variables, yeah, the Y and X, and how they connect one to another. Okay, so this is the differences between quantitative and qualitative. Slowly, you will see the differences in greater detail when you start exploring the study, yeah, the studies. Now, look at this one. There are some, if you look at to the guidelines that I shared with you just now, yeah, you see the conceptual framework, yeah, the heading conceptual framework and theoretical framework. You can see the differences here. Conceptual framework normally talking about the variables, right? The relevant variables of the study. Okay, the way they arrange it into a diagram, yeah, diagram. So the diagram I gave you here, just an example, how to see the connection between variables to variables, right? The same way, quantitative way, qualitative way, in conceptual framework. So we need to refine, yeah, we need to illustrate the connection between variables, okay, variables, okay. Whereas in theoretical framework, yeah, you can read here the structure that can hold or support a theory of research study. Nobody, the yeah, the ground things of the behavior. Like maybe you can consider of what kind of theory that you want to test, right? That you want to use in order to explain the research study. If we use the discipline problems, yeah, discipline problem. Okay, which perspective that we want to explain? If we want to explain the influence, right, the influence, okay, the influence of the behavior, so maybe we can consider the theory that related to the behavior, the student's behavior. Maybe from what perspective, it's up to the focus of the study. If happen, we want to focus on the parenting, right? Parenting. One of the environment, a theory is related to parents, how parents influence. So we have to find theoretical that related to parenting, yeah? Parenting, how the parents influence the individual or the children in terms of um, behavior development. So those are the situation. Theory is something like underpinnings the process of the issues that we are exploring, whereas the conceptual framework is more to variables that being studied. So if, like for example, in one we want to concentrate on discipline problem, we want to see the connection with the parents, so we can connect the variables in the diagram manner. So then you can see. So it's about the variables, yeah, the variable being studied in the research. Whereas in the theoretical framework, talking about what types or what kinds of theory that we use in order to explain the whole process of the issues being studied. Yeah, so many things. Now, theoretical framework is the theories, so many updated theories. Yeah, even like the social learning theory, so many things. Even sometimes they have not just theory; they also have uh, model. Yeah? They use model. For it's the model is also sometimes describing the issues that we will study. Sometimes we use theoretical theories related to the study. Sometimes we use a model Maybe model is more recent, more recent. Theory is like an established theory. And then from this, then we can know what kind of information that we need to get for the study. Like, for example, parent in relation to discipline problem. Of course, we know that from the conceptual framework, the parenting data is required, and then the discipline problems behavior is also required. So from this, we can see what kind of data is required for the study. Okay. Yes,
Doctor,
yes,
excuse
please.
me. Okay, regarding theories, how far back can we go? Is there a time limit that we can only use theories up to the 70s or the 80s, or we can go further back?
Talking about theories, talking about theories, and sometimes like even like the established one normally it's way back in sometimes 1970s, sometimes even 1990s, like personality theories is already invented earlier of the 20th century. But again, we are not saying that we cannot use that theory, but if you go further, if you think that you want to use a specific theory, you go check from the references, right? Check from the references, then you will find that there will be updated theories, updated studies related to the theories. So that's what we need to provide in the discussion. So how the theories evolve, from these particular types into a more recent types. So that is what the information that we have to provide in the discussion. So that's why we cannot say how far you can go back, but how much information need to be provided in the discussion, because the theories is evolve. Those days, maybe with the moment the theory being introduced, being developed around 1970s, may not be the same, right? But may not be the similar. But what we can say, how it evolved, 1970 society, how much it different as compared to now, the current society. So that's what I mean by theoretical framework, not to just to say how the theories work, right? Only, but how it evolved, and so that you can identify which what kind of construct that will be focused in the study. Otherwise, it's hard, because that the theory, if the theory, like for example, has been recommended or developed around 1950s, may not be the same, because the society, the samples that they will use to develop the theory is different. In 1950s as compared to now, 2021, the society is different, the context is different. So again, we need to provide the how the theory evolved into more recent perspective. All right, is that okay for you?
Yes,
All
doctor.
right.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right. If no, then I would say like this. And what I can say is get ready to explore your research topic. Like I said, have to have something in mind, like a research topic, your research interest in more specific perspective, because after this you will come to the further more specific exploration, like number one, designing your research methods quantitatively, qualitatively, or mixed method way. And then number two, you start considering of preparing research proposals, or maybe later as your thesis. Why quantitative? Why qualitative? Why mixed method? Why not quantitative? Why qualitative? Vice versa. Don't become versatile. Yeah, you can back and forth. You know how to move, how to maneuver. If quantitative, why not qualitative? So try to ask as many questions as possible to ourselves, right? So that by asking a lot of questions, at least it will give chances for us to address issues, yeah, in research, especially giving justification and then the direction where to go and so on, right? Ask lots of questions to ourselves. And then, of course, your friends, your SV. But my suggestion, when you come to your supervisor, don't ask the supervisor, do you have any topic for me? So try to avoid that, right? You come to your supervisor, just explain to them what is your research interest and then how much, to show how much you know about the problem. All right, I've done this, I found that, blah, 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 blah. But according to this perspective, I found that it's a different way. So it looks like this, and the direction goes this way. But and then if I analyze further, I found that this is how and then why, what you need to do when you come to your supervisor. Don't come to your supervisor with empty-handed, without, I mean, zero knowledge and zero understanding about the problems. And because the problems will start, yeah, the moment you come with empty-handed like that. Okay. All right. Let me share with you. Not yet. Not yet. Thank you. Let me stop sharing first. Right. Okay. I, I have something here. One that coming from your colleague, uh, teacher survey and review table sample like this to how to maneuver these tables. Thing you want to add is up to you. Okay. We suggest may highlight here. So we just suggest here several the author of the article, the findings that you have found, title of study, population and sampling, instruments. If you want to add more information, it's up to you. It is depends on your creativity. Sometimes the research instruments, you want to add more information, and how they develop, how they validate the instrument. You want to add the information, go ahead, right? We don't stop you, right? And if you think that you want to have at the end of the table, like the last column, you want to provide the address of the references, you can do so. Like for example, on this one, Zong Bing Lin, right? Where did you get this from? Okay, say you get from this journal, so you want to add the address here. Okay, go ahead, it's fine. Okay, you want to add, so that, because this is for you, right? We just give you some ideas, and then after you have completed this, like for example, you have search five, yeah, five literature, five references, or five findings. We suggest to try to find the recent one, the latest one, yeah, up to 5 years back, 2015 and above, right? 2015 and above. Try to find the articles that and this is 2015 and above until 2021. Yeah? So after you compiled it, don't forget to make a review and analysis about these findings and all the informations here. So what you want to review is here, right? If you say you have two issue or two variables or two problems, you want to separate that. Okay, this is variable A or problem A, this is problem B, and then you can do so. Yeah, and then you make some sort of general review of problem A, general review, right, and general review of C, and then one. Okay, use this review and then combine it together, becoming general review of analysis of the references. Yeah, of course, related to your research problem. Okay. That is the I have provided this in the e-learning, so you can access to that one. So I have asked permission from them, luckily, and so fortunate for you to look through. And this is a sample of research flow chart. Yeah, again the same way like the literature survey. Flow chart. This is just an example, so it's up to you how to come up with the flow chart. Yeah. Flowchart is the flow of the research, yeah, from the beginning until the end. How you put into diagram, into charts like this. Okay. And for this one, just give to for this example, you can see that he have put some details in each of the activity. Yeah, each of the activity put some details on it. Okay. So if you think that you want to have the details, you can do so, right? A long flow chart is fine, right? You want to use zigzag or you want to use three pages for the flow chart, it's okay, it's fine. As long it covers the whole process of research, right? The research flow chart. And then, okay, hang on. There's another one. The other one is research design. Okay, no. Hang on. Okay, and then the other one is this is summary of research design, right? Assignment number 2, the summary of research design. So we also provide you with the table, right? So do in table, right? My suggestion is to follow the table easier. If you think that you don't want to follow the table, you just want to write freely without a table, you can do so, but make sure that you cover the issues, problem, possible research objective, possible research question, research design proposed, and justification to use the design. So this is the research design, okay? So you have to make sure that you have this one. So the research design, of course, yeah, the one that we have discussed, the issues, the problem, the possible research objective and research question, how we can list it down. The research design, after you start discussing the module 2, yeah, module 2, and then you will also learn about the justification of using the design, yeah, and then potential ethical issues. But of course, again, this is not confined to these components only. If you think that you want to put more in this, you can do so. Yeah. All right. That is.
Doctor, we can't see the research design. Did you show us anything?
Hang.
I couldn't see
Yeah,
any
yeah, yeah.
research
Sorry,
design.
sorry. Getting late now, so forgot to share with you. All right. This is the research design. All right, you may use the table as your assignment, right? So that you just follow according to the list here: issues, problems, research objective, and questions, and then the research design proposed, and then justification to use. Like I said, these can be explored when you start discussing the types of research study. Okay, and this one I think you can start formulating. What I can suggest is, yeah, what I can suggest is, hang on, right? You may use this, what was that, the formulation, yeah, this formulation, this discussion from the general review of literature, in order to identify, yeah, you may use this one, like if say you this is your um what was that, the literature review and meta-analysis. So say this is yours, and then from here you may suggest about this one. Okay, the focus of the problems, right? The issues of problem. Maybe you may use this one, right? This is the problems that you have identified, and then possible research objective and research questions. So just list down from here. You develop the focus. Wow, I want to focus on this one, this two, this three, this four, right? Okay, you just list it down here, and then in order to conduct the study, this study, so I think this is more to quantitative study, or this is more to qualitative study, or I think I can use a mixed method study. So you just propose it here, okay? And then put some justification why that design is suitable. Okay, that is what you need to do for the assignment. So you make use of, actually, the first one is the, what was that, the literature, yeah, the literature. From that literature, actually, you can continue with your assignment number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, starting with the assignment number 1 and the literature review and meta-analysis. So from there, you can expand it into assignment number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, my suggestion, I'm not saying that you cannot use other examples, right, for this, and that different example. It's fine. To me, it's fine. But my suggestion is try to use the same issues and same focus. This will help you to understand the whole concepts of conducting research. Okay. What else? Let me see. What else I have here? And then we also have data simulation. Okay. Data simulation. This is some kind of data simulation that I have provided in the e-learning. So you may use this as part of the data simulation assignment. But of course, you may use other types of data simulation. So like, for example, this is the questionnaire, yeah, questionnaire that you use to collect these data, yeah, these data. Like, for example, you use this instrument, all right? You use this instrument as the simulation for this design. And then you develop your own. Yeah, you can develop your own, right? You can develop your own here, and then you can create your own responses here. Maybe here is dichotomous. Maybe you want to use the 3 scales: 1, 2, 3, yes, uncertain, no, or maybe you want to use the agree or disagree, strongly disagree. So it's up to you, right? You may use your own examples. The same way goes here, right? You may use your own examples, but if you think that you want to use this one, it's also fine. Okay, this is the assignment number 4, yeah? Data simulation. You have 2 data simulation assignments, which is data simulation. One is quantitative, and data simulation 2, qualitative data simulation. All right, I think I have covered all. Okay, any question? Any question?
And doctor. Password for the e-project. But
Yes.
yes, I can't enter the
Okay.
e-project. Is that the password, the number of the
No, no.
passport?
The e-project, the username is your metric number. Okay, your metric
Okay,
number, and then the password is password. 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 Okay.
okay.
So
Yes, the word is the password.
password. Yes,
Yes.
password. If once you enter, once you get the page, you have to
Okay.
change.
Yes,
You have
I can. Yes, I can. Thank you.
okay. Change your password. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Don't forget to change the password. Otherwise, people can access your account. All right. Any more question? If no, I would say that I wish you all the best.